Daniel, welcome to Raising Lions podcast.
Love being here, man.
Well, let's get started with the hero journey. So tell me a little bit about your story, how you grew up, where you grew up, siblings and all.
Well, I grew up in a trailer park, which is my favorite thing to tell people because literally I remember as a kid, I was in a single wide, trailer. My parents had the bedroom, there was a bathroom, a living room, and a kitchen. And my brother and I slept on the floor in the living room.
Wow.
And so there was a dirt hill behind our trailer, and we had cars and balls and bikes and but I was happy. I was happy because at this trailer park they had a pool. So when you're a kid, especially a young kid, like if there's a pool and there's dirt and you're playing outside, like life is good. So, for me, I had a pretty good childhood. My parents didn't really give me anything. So if I wanted something, I mowed somebody's lawn or, did a side job of fixing a fence or I was just like available. People are like, I need somebody to dig a hole. I'm like, I'm your guy,
Yes.
like, will you pay me? That was the question. And so I just kind of grew up. My dad was a hard worker. I got that from him. That's one of our family values now. But we kind of got lucky because where we lived, I went to the better of the three high schools. And so I just had normal friends in like 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Like all my friends had, middle class, families. And so as a kid, they were all said, oh, we're going to go to college. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what you do. So I went to college, because all my friends were. And my mom and dad's contribution to that was the moving truck, the U-Haul.
Yeah.
To go from Redding, California, which is where I'm from, to Sacramento State. And so landed at Sac State, got a business degree, thought that would equip me to be a business owner. Turns out it didn't. The one thing I would say about Sac State is I learned accounting, that's the one hard skill that I got, and finance. But went to Sac State, got a business degree, worked for a bank, then started a real estate firm, then an outsourcing firm, now a hotel firm, now a construction firm, and just kind of been an entrepreneur since I was basically 20.
Nice. So if we go back, to childhood, what are some of the things that you can say that your parents did well?
One of the things my parents, they just didn't give me much. Like if I wanted it, I went out and worked. I did my own laundry. I did my own chores. They didn't check on homework. It was like, okay, you did homework. Great. You got good grades. Okay. Like there wasn't like this like harshness to like so I think that number one, I watched my dad work hard. So I worked hard.
Did you have siblings?
Had a brother. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did both of you kind of had the same outcome?
Yeah.
Being in the same environment?
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is, he's successful.
Nice.
And we don't come from a family of success.
Yeah.
So the broader family, there's lots of challenges.
Yeah.
But my brother and I, we basically got out of that kind of poor, loop that happens generationally. And it's rare, by the way. I mean, I remember I'm in economics class in high school, and the guy goes, if your parents are poor, you're going to be poor. And I sheepishly raised my hand. I was like, oh, what if you work hard? He's like, it's going to be, the teacher statistically said, you had no chance. Yeah, Daniel, you have no chance of winning.
So you said that you were in a good high school or like middle school. So that means that you were like in a decent neighborhood. You lived so in the environment, even though the situation at home was tight, the environment was a good environment where you were exposed to what good looks like, if you will.
Well, and my parents, they were like, oh, you want to do sports? Okay.
Okay.
So I did sports. My friends were, they were relatively academic. So like being smart wasn't like a bad thing.
Yeah.
Where the other schools in the area, they weren't so academic and they weren't so, achievement based, I guess is the word that I would say. So I went to a good school. My girlfriend when I was 15, she was in all honors courses. And so it was kind of weird for me to be like, okay, you're smarter than me. So I just did it. Like, I was like, okay, I'll just go to honors English, or honors math or whatever it was. And she ran for student government. And I was like, well, I guess I should do something. And so
That's amazing.
peer group,
Yeah.
was pretty successful and pretty focused and achievement based. So
And was that by design? Did your parents by
yeah,
design? Okay, so it's just so it happened.
luck,
Got it. Okay, so
luck.
that's it's fascinating because you had this situation that created this drive
Yeah.
to want to exit this bad situation, but then the environment was a good environment where the way to get out was a good way because it could have been in a rough.
Yeah.
They could have gone the other way where gangs or drugs or whatever, and then you took that path. But in this case,
It's like you've been to Redding, California before. Drugs and gangs is like
it's the same everywhere in the world. So
bad, man.
yeah, it's tough. Okay. So those are the things that they did well. So where is something that they didn't do well, like your parents? Or do you wish they'd done better?
So I think my parents just winged it a lot. They were kids, they were young. My parents were both in their early 20s when they had us. So there wasn't much of a plan. And so, we're very much planners. So we waited, really until our mid 30s to start having kids. And, there's, we're going to be older parents. My youngest is only 4. So
Yeah.
I did the math. Like by the time, she's out of high school and out of college, I might be in my mid 60s, maybe. But so I think they could have been more intentional with what they did and how they supported us.
So in what way? Like what would be
In all
one or two
ways.
things that you wish they were more intentional on?
Yeah, in all the ways, sports, academics, the people that we hung out with. You know, we just lucked into a good crew, right? Like the kids I went to high school with were good kids.
Yeah.
Like, thank goodness that happened. I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like if I hadn't lucked into a group of people who were athletic and who were academic and who wanted to do good things in the world. I mean, I don't know. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
So now as you're raising your own kids, you have 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
As you're raising your own kids, what are some of the things that you're taking from the way you grew up with you? And what are some of the things that you're changing and doing different? Well, obviously you mentioned being more intentional, but a little bit more specific. What are some of the things that you're not going to do, things that you will keep going?
Well, it's interesting. I even caught myself the other day. Like I have a plan for my real estate assets. I have a plan for my business. I have a plan for our marriage. And then I started thinking, I'm like, do I have a development plan for my own children?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh crap, I don't, And so, building out like, I have one daughter who will remain nameless, who doesn't love physical activity.
Yeah.
And so we're making sure she's in physical activity and has that mind body connection. We have another kid who isn't much of a public speaker, but every opportunity we have, we throw her in front of a camera, with a mic, in front of her peers. And so we've been intentional about creating those plans. So, that's probably the biggest thing that my parents didn't do.
Yeah.
That we're doing. Family values. That's a really big deal. I don't typically tell my kids they're bad kids. I just say, what's our values? Is that in alignment with our values? And the behaviors are what I'm calling out, but not the human,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then, honestly, I think the biggest thing I can do as a parent is have a great relationship with my spouse. So like staying married is a big deal. Investing in our relationship is a big deal. So, I think those are the things.
And so as you're thinking of your goal for your kids, what are some of those goals?
Well, it's one to accelerate their intelligence in the things that they're really great at. It's meeting them where they're at, supercharging what they're world class at, and then helping them develop the stuff that they're really not great at. One kid, you know, wasn't much of a reader, so we have a reading, you know, coach.
Yeah.
And you know, it's way past the time she needs that, but we're still doing it to keep her involved and engaged in that.
Yeah.
Um, they're all in piano, they're all in sports, they're all in dance, they're all required to speak publicly. They all have stock investments. They all have chores that they have to mark off every single day. And as they're getting older, we're making them responsible for more and more and more. We let them also feel their own consequences, you know, like whatever those consequences are. We're not protecting them against themselves.
Yeah.
You forget a laptop and you go to school. Well, guess what? That's your problem. And I'm not going to drive back home and get your laptop and then take it back to school for you. Like, you forgot your laptop. It sucks. You don't have a laptop today, you know? So these little kind of things that are just real life, we're trying to teach them the real life stuff while they're protected and don't have any consequences, so that when they do have consequences, they're ready.
That makes sense. So how do you get kids more, get them to develop more drive when they live in an environment where they're comfortable and most things, you know, not the same way you grew up, in the environment that you grew up in. So um, how do you think about that?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm worried about that, right? We were motivated,
Yeah.
and so even now, I'm like, let's go get it, you know. Um, they're not going to have the same kind of lack of things that
Yeah.
they had, you know. So, um, that being said, you know, we try not to buy them things. They have their own money. For instance, we live in this neighborhood where Christmas lights are put up every year. So they'll do, you know, chocolate, you know, so they'll sell hot chocolate outside during Christmas when it's cold. And last year they made like $150,
Nice.
you know, like 6, 7 nights. And and we didn't help, by the way. We don't help. We make them pay us back for the materials, you know, and in fact, it's a pain in the butt for me because I got to sit out there, you know,
Watch.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then the other thing is I'm teaching them, you know, in the beginning, they were really bad at just talking to people.
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta say hi. You gotta say, hey, would you like some chocolate?
Yeah.
You know, hot chocolate. We've got hot chocolate, and you know, we also have waters if you're thirsty.
Yeah.
And, you know, that made one of my 3 kids very uncomfortable to just randomly call out,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it's just putting them in uncomfortable situations, not buying them anything, helping them develop skills, and just being with them in their journey.
Have you done the Girl Scouts cookie thing?
We tried Girl Scouts. One of our kids was interested, our middle kid,
Yeah.
and it was like, you know, like, um, but yeah, we've tried that one. Didn't go well.
Got it. It is a good, it's a good program for kids to get out there
And achieve.
ask, yeah, and ask for the sale.
Yeah.
And I remember my daughter was in it. She was very little. They were both, you know, very little, and we would script. It was like, okay, when you knock the door, what do you say? It's like, oh, you want cookies? No, no. Well, how about you say, how many boxes would you like?
Yeah.
And now you don't have a yes or no question. You have like a number, and then the person eventually says more than one.
Yeah.
And then so you got a higher sales number, which is cool. And both, yeah, it's a lot of fun for them. So how do you develop the sense of identity in the kids?
Hmm. Yeah, each of them have this very wonderful difference,
Yeah,
you know, and so I remember, you know, one of our kids is classically intelligent, like memorizes, knows things,
yeah,
you know, and then the other kid is emotionally intelligent.
yeah,
And in our society, there's like this, you know, if you can memorize things. And so we explain, hey, these are all the different kinds of intelligences, and we're not all equal.
yeah,
We're all in our own development wheel, you know? And so just explaining to them, like, hey, this is your uniqueness.
Yeah.
And then, what do you want to do with it? And how do you want to live in it? And
Yeah.
how do you want to expose it? We have one kid who's very headstrong. So, if I come at her and say, do this, she's going to be like, no, dad. But if I say, hey, and I think this is another good example. I thought I was going to be a parent that was like, okay, these are the rules. And then kids are, yes, dad,
Mm.
that is not how it works. Unfortunately, it's just not.
Yeah.
So, we're on a walk, everybody's whining, I don't want to walk, and all of a sudden we're on a walk with friends and everybody's skipping and having fun.
Yeah.
Or we're on a walk and I'm like, I'm going to time you guys. You got to go to the stop sign and come back. Go,
Yeah.
And so learning things like, how do I make these challenges, for my headstrong daughter?
Yeah.
And how do I keep them engaged so that they're interested in the hike? So they'll go on a bike ride. So, so w- we had one daughter who struggled riding a bike and we finally got it cracked, but it just took extra time,
Yeah.
So you got to stick with it. I hate this thing. I'm like, well, you're really going to love it.
Yeah.
I promise. We got to, we just got to keep with it.
Yeah.
Let's try on the grass, So just those things, keeping them motivated, keeping them positive, making it a game, engaging with them in a way that makes it fun.
And so, so essentially identifying with their superpower and then telling them what that superpower is and then putting a menu of options in front of them, how to utilize that superpower. And yeah. And so how do you guide them toward like a future outcome? Do you give them like options or do you start talking about that now or you're just letting themselves discover?
I want them to win at the thing that they want to win at. So there's lots of questions like, well, so if you're going to sell hot chocolate, what's your goal?
Yeah.
Why is that the goal?
Yeah.
Why does it matter? And how many do we need? We were, they're getting ready for another like entrepreneurial thing. It's called the business fair. And my oldest was like, Dad, we don't have any cupcake paper. I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, have you asked mom? Like, have you looked in the kitchen? And, they ended up reading that you can put extra oil in the pan and just have no, so
Paper.
yeah, but I can solve that for them. I know exactly. But my question wasn't like, here's how you solve it. My question is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So parents are very fast to give the solution.
Yeah.
I'm typically, in relationship, number one with them, and number two, asking them how they're going to solve it and not solving it for them.
So speaking of in a relationship, how do you maintain rapport like in a continuous space?
Oh my gosh, time. That's the time. It's time. Like
Do you have a routine?
we do. So my wife and I both do daddy-daughter trips every year with the kids, which is huge. Like our youngest is 4, so she's in preschool, like
Yeah.
a parent participation thing. And so they have little quarters. And so every quarter I go in and volunteer and I'm like, show me your classroom, show me, I want to meet your teacher, so every time I'm having them describe their world and share with me what's going on for them.
Yeah.
And it's really a time. I mean, everything's time for
Yeah.
them. Right now they're all young enough. They still love me and want to be around me. So I'm just kind of squeezing that in as much as possible.
Speaking of that, how are you getting ready for that
When they're not?
transition? Yeah.
I don't know.
What's the plan?
Well, it's interesting because there are a couple things. I do this north, south, east, west thing. So since they were babies, I've grabbed them, lifted them up, and I say north, south, east, west, and then I actually literally throw them in the air.
Okay.
And as they're falling in the air, I say, I love you so much. So we have a family number, which is 14324. So that's like our family number. We have a lot of symbols in our house, like, hey, a compass is a symbol. And so my wife, we were just training our kids to have these like symbols or emotional responses or feelings, nostalgic feelings when it comes to our family life.
Okay.
So for instance, my wife just got back from a trip from Boston, and she was with the middle daughter, and she brought back to the baby a compass, like literally a little gold compass, like
Nice.
and that was the gift. Well, guess what? Compass happens to be our family crest, like something that's in our family crest.
Yeah.
And so we're we're number one, we're trying to stay in relationship, indoctrinate them into our values, and then hope that as they transition from kid to adolescence, adolescence to adulthood,
Yeah.
they'll choose our values and choose to be with us. And that's our hope, that they choose it, but it's ultimately their choice. One thing that's unique too is we have family dinner every night, like at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like it happens every night. Like
Consistent.
phones are away. One of our kids is a reader, books are away. We all sit down, and then we do high-low buffalo, which is like this concept of what was your high of the day, what was your low of the day, and then buffalo is any like random fact.
Yeah.
Um, I think those are the things that are working. Not working, they're so wildly different. It's hard, as they're getting differently dispersed. Like one kid's like soccer, the other person is like wants to do dance, another one's wanting to do, so they're all doing different things
Yeah.
now, and we're no longer able to hold them together
Hmm.
as much. We all did swim, for instance, as a family. So that was easy. We all did soccer as a family. That was easy. Now it's like, okay, we're losing those things that are uniquely us in the sports and activity world. So I've got to think through, how we do that, what we do, what our thing is. So we've added um, skiing, but the baby is hard because she's only 4.
Yeah.
So what's hard for us, I think, is we have such a big split in age, and keeping everybody together is going to be kind of a challenge.
How are you doing with technology? Like, what's the rule in the house around technology?
We restrict all of the computer time as much as we possibly can to it's a tool for work.
Yeah.
It's not a tool for video games or this thing or entertain. Like we just don't want that.
Yeah. How can you use like your values, your kind of like goals for them, your like culture, your family culture? How can you use that to align on that particular challenge or particular subject? Because there's a way.
Yeah. We just lots of communication, lots of conversations, explaining why I don't like it, what mom is worried about, how we can find a middle road and it can be okay. I think it's dangerous. I think YouTube is targeting our children. I think they want more addicted
Yeah.
adults. And so if they can target them with, you know, ads and shows that are addictive, then they're more likely to get paying users in
Yeah.
the future. So,
Well, they're trading attention, so they're acquiring attention for free from users, and then they're selling it to advertisers. So you can't blame the algorithm, you can't blame the company. That's what their
yeah,
purpose in
yeah,
the world to do. But then it's on the parents, us, to make
sure.
sure to preserve that attention
Yep,
and then channel it towards something that's going to be valuable long term.
yep,
And so that's where kind of like for me, like that conversation around values, if our values are growth, our values are contribution, then we want to allocate or invest that attention in something that's going
yeah,
to develop growth, that's going to help us develop skills, develop relationships, develop things, and then it's going to allow us to use that
mm-hmm.
that resource toward contributing to whatever it is. The kids are into environment or into whatever, they can you can connect those two, so
Mention, look at it. I might need to look at our values and add an anti-value.
Yeah.
No addictions
I
to
would say growth and contribution are two really
easy ones. Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very powerful drivers. If you think about like
Yeah.
what Tony Robbins talks about in terms of like what human drivers are,
Yep.
significance, certainty,
Mm-hmm.
um, variety,
Yeah.
and love and connection. So those are limited in terms of their reach, but growth and contribution have unlimited.
Yeah.
There's no ceiling to that. So if you're inserting the concept of like, listen, if you're only focus on these two things, you're gonna achieve everything you want in life. You're gonna be a
Right. Right.
happier
Right.
person. You're gonna be more connected.
Yeah.
And so if you're allocating attention, well, same as money, like we talk about, you explain to them how to invest and donate and do this with money. Same thing with attention.
Yep.
I mean, so where's your focus go? Where focus go, energy flows, right?
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think that's kind of like an easy way to kind of align with that, and same thing with the spouse as well. So
Yeah. I think it's good. It's good feedback.
it makes it a lot easier. And so in terms of um, like the environment, so like you got lucky in terms of like the friends, and so how do you kind of curate the environment for your kids?
We purposely put brakes on the wrong parent
Yeah.
and kid matches.
Yeah.
And then we intentionally surround, like we were just, four wives ran a half marathon in Santa Cruz. So the dads take care of the kids, the wives run, right?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we had like a beach day in Santa Cruz, lovely, and the four, couples are so I'm about to score a goal, and one of the guys jumps over, slide kicks, and kicks it out of the goal area. Like they're just like so aggressive, and it's clean, and
Yeah.
so they're hardworking, respectful, successful people who care, and like those are the people we're hanging out with.
Nice.
Gonna go to Morocco with you and a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
We're intentional in the ways. Because they're going to run into a bunch of crazy in life.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to hold that
Just
off.
delay.
Just delay. Like, maybe it will never happen, but we intentionally separate a lot
Yeah.
of people. And it's literally a values match conversation for us.
Yeah.
Do we match or do we not match?
It's crazy because like as you grow, you have these friends, you have these networks, and you like the parents, but then on this one thing around parenting, they're a little bit more loose on this or that, and there's like, I love you, we'll hang out together, but we're
Not
not
the
gonna have the
family.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And
Well,
it's
it's-
hard. It gets harder.
I think it's the parents
Yeah.
need to match and the kids need to match.
Correct.
And I think somebody explained this to me. It's like you have, coffee friends,
Yeah.
you have dinner party friends, you have, like, go overnight friends, and then you have vacation friends.
Yeah.
And so, you, the higher up that ladder you go, the longer you're going to spend with somebody, the
Yeah.
more you hope that they're in line with your family values.
Yeah. So right now, I don't even sometimes I don't even care if the kids are good, and I don't really care if the parents, they're fine, they're okay. Even if it's not a super
Mm-hmm.
good match, if the kid is great, we'll just facilitate
Yeah.
that, that relationship. Like kids that have been like exceptional, where, that just naturally exceptional, where the parents really just
Or average.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So I'm okay with that. Like, I don't really
Yeah.
care as long as the kid has, is good, well-behaved kid, has
Yep.
something going for them. Like they're actually pulling our kids towards something that's positive. Whether it is, reading, learning, being entrepreneurial or being physical activity, physically. So we curate kind of like that. I don't really. Yes, I'll figure out the parents afterward, but if the kid is
Yeah.
good, then. But if the parents can be great, church going, well behaved, and like everything's great, but the kid is like a shit kid. So I'm like, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. So it's fascinating, but it is a challenge, and especially today with technology and yeah. So are you introducing the kids to AI to like any is not at all? Are they?
None of it. In fact, what's interesting is, I think I'm learning AI and we use it in the company. And, like the other day, I designed a real estate, thing with some AI stuff and underwrote a property and created another thing, like, so I'm using it.
Yeah,
But to be honest, I don't think that's a skill that, like, now it matters how you use it and, how you prompt it and all that.
yeah,
And I need to learn those things because I need to use it. But by the time they actually are in the workforce, it's literally going to be like, just talk what you want. And
yeah,
then they deliver something, change it. And
yeah,
I don't think it's going to be a required skill. I think the skills that are going to matter is like, talking to people, like that's never going to change.
yeah.
You need to know how to actually interact and be in a relationship,
Yes.
and then values, and then creatively solving problems and being creative, and artistic in their own right,
Yeah.
drawing, imagining, thinking outside of the box, knowing what if statements. Like, I know if I do this, then it has 10 steps. There's this chain reaction. And so teaching them those are the things that I'm focused on,
Yeah.
not necessarily, technology.
No, I
Just not
agree.
technology. It's so interesting.
Yeah, no, if they're curious, and I agree with you. If they're curious, they're gonna pick that up very quickly. So it doesn't really take that long.
God,
We grew up with nothing.
yeah, I give my kids, hey, how do I do this? And they're like,
Yeah,
done. And I'm like, okay,
yeah, yeah. It's fine. Well, I appreciate you doing this. What's a final thought or final advice you'd give to the Raising Lions community?
sure. Final advice. Um, you know, Actually, I think that something that's unique is there's not very many of us that have written out their values
Hmm.
or written out their family mottos or their sayings or like their things. So story is important.
Stories, yeah,
Yeah, family story,
yeah,
like a great example, we went home to Reading to a cousin's high school graduation, like a second cousin.
yeah,
And we warned our kids before. I'm like, hey, you're going to see some things that you've never seen before,
yeah,
like people who smoke and people that drink a lot and
yeah,
people, so we started warning them about these behaviors
yeah,
that they were going to see. And we did it beforehand, and we did it. And then we checked in with them afterwards. And this is my family,
yeah,
like, and people I grew up with.
yeah,
And so, recording your family stories, recording your family values, having all these things written down is probably, and being on the same page with your spouse
yeah,
to like the point where you can point to them.
yeah,
Like that's probably my biggest, because my wife and I, we weren't on the, she's like, she loves kindness. And,
yeah.
and I was like, God, that kindness? like, is that really? I'm kind of more direct. I mean, how do you feel about that one? So, but being positive
Yeah.
is a thing that I care about,
Yeah.
and kindness is a thing. So we combine them, and, Ramses are positive and kind.
That's awesome.
And so, being on the same page with your spouse and having written values and missions and visions, and even something as simple as a compass or like, like our family crust,
Yeah.
we're Phoenix rising out of, the flames. So getting all my kids to agree on what Phoenix and what design and
Yeah.
what, it's been fun and a challenge, but that's probably my,
Yeah. And I think the story thing is super important. Like telling the story of your parents and
yeah,
grandparents and where they came from and where they moved from and how they get there. And so it gives them a sense of like how we got here
yeah,
and
context.
all the people that contributed in me being having the life that I have today and being
Yeah.
here and how can I contribute moving forward. Um, well, thank you for doing this.
AJ, anytime.